Public Works Committee meeting. Roll call, please.
Chairman Weggie is absent. Alderwoman Tice?
Here.
Alderman Gould?
Here.
Alderman Erger?
Here.
All 3 of 4 members are present.
Next on the agenda is approval of the agenda. You guys had a chance to take a look at it? So we'll approve that by acclamation. Item 3 on there is citizen comments. Do we have any citizens online want to make any comments? Okay. We'll move back to report of the committee chair and alderman, and since Chairman Weggie is not here, I guess I'll say I have no comment or no report. Alderwoman Tice?
No report.
Alderman Erger?
No report.
Okay, great. City Administrator report is item 5. We don't have anything, is that correct? Correct. Okay. Item 6 is Department Commission reports, so Public Works Department, you're up.
Good evening. We have several different items on the agenda for just updates. Regarding projects, the Russell Avenue STP, Deer Creek Connector Part B, Gershenson continues to work on the poles and the conduits there at the intersection of Brentwood Boulevard and the UP Railroad. Received a call from the UP Railroad. They should be done with their signals tomorrow, and then they've got some work on Saturday that'll have lane restrictions, but you'll still be able to go north and southbound. Ultimately, they said that after Friday or after the weekend, that the signals will be operational for the railroad crossing. So they had asked me if we had any objections if they operated, and I said, well, I would call the county because it's not my road, but if you're asking Public Works, then I would support it. So then when trains go through there, they'll trip the switch and then the gates will come down. They still have to work on the median work so that then it pinches that point so you wouldn't be able to go around the gates. So we're getting really close to, wrapping that up with them, and then Gershenson will continue to do their intersection work with the signals. I know Mast Arms, all the equipment's there, so it's just a matter of, fixing the foundations, signal cabinets, and mounting everything. Regarding FEMA capital projects, at the Public Works garage, we have the 2 new dump trucks, the F550 and 750. They're sitting in the garage that we would get. A new sanitation truck is in the garage, a new crack sealer, new backhoe. Street sweeper's been ordered. It should arrive around Labor Day, is what they think. And then on July 8th, which is just this week, the HVAC above us was swapped out with a new 10-ton unit. So it's the same thermostat, but there's a smoke alarm that's mounted above it, so it's in the ceiling panel in case there's ever a fire. It'll turn itself off, unlike the other one. What else do we have? Oh, the roof project, we're waiting on the contractor. So I know Frederick Roofing and Novak are ready to go. They'd submitted paperwork for a permit, and then they'll pick a day that best suits us to start doing the roof work, and we'll publish that on social media and on the website. Switching gears, 2818 Breckenridge Industrial Court, the former Bowser House. We're waiting on the demolition letters. I know utilities have been connected to do their disconnects and remove meters if they have meters. Tubbs & Son has been working with their abatement contractor. I know we opened a door for him today. He's taken measurements for quantities, and then they're going to do asbestos abatement next week. So once the asbestos is removed, once the utilities are disconnected, then they'll apply for a permit with Webster Groves for demolition, and probably by the end of July, very beginning of August, they'll demolish the building. So just a few weeks away. We'll publish that too, since it's kind of a big deal. It's been there for a while. The police department generator tank replacement, that was done last week. So CK Power replaced the old fuel tank, new fuel tanks in, and diesel fuel's filled in the generator. It runs and everything's fine. So that project can be closed. That was in our capital. 9140 White Avenue. Originally, we brought it here last month for a removal. When we met in the field, the homeowner decided he didn't want it removed because it would change it aesthetically. So we just agreed to replace the west end where the slabs were defective. So we tore them out, replaced them, removed the forms, backfilled, we're done. And then over on Brentwood Forest, the condos originally talked about a concierge service where it would be door-to-door trash pickup, but they couldn't get support, I guess, from the board, so it's died. Oh.
I had no knowledge of it prior to
I don't think anyone did, but.
No, the board didn't, I didn't.
Yeah, so we'll just maintain status quo the way it's been done.
That should be.
Okay. Over on McKnight Road, we had a meeting with Gershenson Construction. So I put together a memo for Monday's meeting and to bring this about at this meeting. So based on our meeting today, Gershenson would like to start out there Thursday evening. So 2 Thursdays from now, July 25th. So in 2 weeks, they'd like to start around 8 p.m., which is outside of our normal working hours. And they said that they would mill and overlay starting at Litzinger and McKnight and work their way from south to north. And as soon as they mill an area, then the new asphalt will be right behind them, dropping asphalt in the milled out area and roll and just keep marching towards I-64. And they said they could get it done in a night. So if they did it that way, they said because there's less volume, they'd be able to do it in one night. If they had to do it during the day, it would probably be a 2-day project. So that's pretty much where it is. So it would start on the 25th, go into the 26th, and then a week later they would do the striping, you know, because you would mill away your yellow and your white and all that stuff. So, you know, that's where that particular project is. And, you know, we're going to ask if we could work outside that time period. You know, we can ask this committee and then bring it to the full board, or if you just want to wait for the full board.
Well, could I?
Go ahead, I'll
sorry.
recognize you.
So I have a question. So, like, how noisy is it, and how long are they going to take? And it's, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
each house would then, like, as it works north, would be.
Right, if it started at 8 p.m., he said, well, we'll clear out of there before 5 a.m. The goal would be to try to get it done in as little time as possible, but realistically, it's probably about a 7-8 hour job. So if you started at, you know, 8 p.m., it would probably extend till about 4 a.m. And then they would have to take away their traffic control devices because they're gonna try to slide traffic, kind of like Winter Wonderland, where you're using more of the western side and still having north and southbound. And then from the center line over, they would tear out northbound and go that way. So there will be noise in the sense that you're gonna have dump trucks, milling machines.
Like the concrete dumping into the, like, aren't they?
It'll be the millings. It's a little quieter than like solid hunks of concrete, but there's still noise when little fragments drop into a metal bed. So, you know, it's really, do you want to do it then when it's at night? I don't know. You know, the houses are closed up.
Houses are really I mean, the houses are, you know, 10
Right.
feet away.
I know he said that each area you'd only be there a short period, like a couple hours, and then you'd move to the next block, you know, so on and so forth.
But what's the alternative if this happens during the day?
If it's during the day, it would just take longer because the first day would be milling, and he said he'd like to start early with milling before rush hour, like maybe at 4 or 5 in the morning mill, and then you would be done in a few hours, and then you're just done for the day. Then the next day in the morning, you would come in and lay your asphalt, and it could be accomplished that way too. He just said, would you rather just tear the Band-Aid all the way off and just go straight through, or break it up in 2 days? Either way, it's got to be done.
I live far enough away that this would not wake me up, but this just, I mean, if at 2 in the morning, all of a sudden a truck goes by and they're like throwing rocks in it and it's really loud and it's 10 feet from your window. I know we allow work at night, but it's typically like, we've done it at Chick-fil-A, we've done it on
Right.
Sundays, we've done other places. This is right on residential
Well, I
road,
knew-
even though
yeah.
it's such a big road with a lot of traffic, but it's basically a residential road.
And Ladue did do nighttime work. I looked it up. It was May of '22. That's when they had Missouri Petroleum do the sealing. So it's been done at night, just on,
But they did sealing, not,
it's still backup alarms and stuff. It's large trucks with sprayers
we
and
have,
rollers.
I guess, I didn't hear anything.
I don't remember hearing any complaints then. They used pilot cars, flaggers, had big light stands up at night, you know, so
Did they ask us for concurrence, whether they?
they did not, Ladue just did it.
We didn't
so,
know they were doing it.
yeah. I mean, it did tell us they were doing it, but it's not like I had a choice in the matter. It's like, hey, we're gonna do this at night, so it's like, okay.
No.
I mean, I think the houses that are closest to McKnight are probably on the south end, closer to Because as you get
All the way
further,
up.
Yeah, then
further
they-
north, they get a little bit more
And they have
inset.
trees and stuff to kind of act as a buffer.
But not much. I mean, you get a
But,
Whitehall there right there, and you
yeah.
get into,
Yeah.
and then there's some in York that there's one in York that actually faces McKnight.
Yeah.
They're just thin out as it gets to York.
The inconvenience is more if it's during the day.
Yeah.
You know, their ability to get in and out. And then those who don't live here who use that, of course, there's going to be the message trailer.
Yeah, there'll be a message board, you know, indicating that road construction ahead, you know, what the restrictions are. Yeah, during the day's bad in the sense that you've got, what, 15,000 plus cars in the course of a day that move through that corridor. If you're doing it 8 p.m. to, say, 4 a.m., I don't know what that volume is, but it's got to be significantly less.
Well, not only that, during the day, then you're impacting people coming and going into their property
Yes.
and the roads, whereas
And on the Ladue side,
the middle
because
of the
those are all
night.
dead-end streets.
Right.
yeah, in the middle of the night, less people are going to be in and out of the neighborhood. I mean, I understand the concern of the noise, certainly understand that, but I think we have to consider all of the factors. I don't know. What do you think you want to do?
So things like, we had talked briefly, not in a meeting, about like Whitehall Court. So what if, like, the fire truck needed to get into Whitehall Court right when they're paving in front of I guess they just like run over the asphalt and then they'd re-asphalt it, or I mean.
They could,
Or
but
somebody
this-
had to get
yeah.
out. I mean, there are,
They're gonna have flaggers posted like at a side street like that, and he said it's about 15, 30 minutes. It would start to harden up once it's rolled. So he's like, we would just lead them out and have them go straight, rather than if you turned your wheels to try to go around it, you might mess it up. So they'll do like half at a time just to let traffic pass through there. But he's like, there's probably less risk of anybody passing through there at midnight versus if you did it, you know, at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever, when people are at their busiest.
I guess it's whether you inconvenience more people or wake a lot of people up. So I don't know the best solution to this.
I think staff can take the brunt and say that Dan can take the brunt.
Well, if it's coming to the board,
That's the recommendation. Well, you know, the good thing is that, is it Gershenson?
Gershenson.
Say they could do either one.
okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that there's any staging that's required if we were to push out the information, I guess after the meeting on Monday. But when is it? It's the following week?
It's the 25th.
25th.
So it'd be like 10 days after the Board of
Right.
Aldermen.
Yeah, either they
that's-
work,
So that's a great idea.
Get
Let's
some
let's
communication.
plan for it overnight. We'll push it out if there's a lot of.
yeah, we just wanted to take the temperature to the full board. It's like, do you support a 1-day or a 2-day? And if so, which way? And then we'll give it to Michelle Boyer and push it out on social media. We still have 2 weeks from today, so I mean, and then if we meet Monday, then we have next week to get it out there and talk to the residents.
I mean, if we inconvenience all the people who drive through there, I'm kind of fine with that. It's just we're inconvenience our own, but our own residents know how to get around. So I don't know.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of like a water utility break or something like that. I mean, it's unplanned and it's noisy and they work there on the road. I know there's several patches you see on the Ladue side. so-
Usually, you're so thankful for the water to come back on. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Right, right.
Maybe the same with pavement. So let's
Yeah.
plan on the evening, and we'll change it Monday if it's a.
Okay.
I'll talk to Alderman Plufka in the meantime.
And then switching topics, 2832 Manderley Drive, that's, between, what is it, Russell and Manchester. It's the trail that connects Manderley to Hilldale, so that retaining wall is leaning over. We met with a contractor, we've sent it to 2 contractors, one's responded, we met out in the field. He's supposed to send us an estimate next week. So the difficulty there, I'm sure you've seen before in pictures, it's like the wall's leaning over near a garage. It's very narrow through there, maybe 5 or 6 feet. So you have to have equipment that's small enough to work there or use a lot of hand tools. So they would have to disassemble the wall and put in a new wall. And then if we can get all that done, then we could try to divest ourselves of the interest there and, you know, basically turn it over to the adjacent property. So that's the goal with that. Missouri American Water, they still haven't started that I know of. They were supposed to work starting around Mary and Florence and then work their way on both Florence and Marion and kind of continue with Kentland and Covington and that, but I haven't seen
They
anything.
haven't started yet, no, but.
I know they applied for a permit, so maybe that's, maybe they were late with the permit. I know that there's a fire hydrant on Covington that they wanted to flip to the other side of the cul-de-sac, so they were asking the fire department for approval.
Yeah, all the markings have been done, except oddly, mine doesn't have any, my property doesn't have any blue markings at all. I think hopefully they don't think, oh, well, we fixed that part,
Yeah, they
It's the
should. It
entire
was on the
main that's gonna-
drawing, it showed a new main past your house and then a hydrant possibly moved to the opposite side of your house.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, no, they haven't started yet, but everybody's excited to have everything torn up.
yeah, that'll take quite a while. It's like substantial completion's not until the fall, so
Right.
October, November.
Yeah.
Could I ask a question about the first item, which is the connection to the GRG, when you were focusing on the Union Pacific, but what's the timing on the path? Were we waiting for the guards to come down, or, yes, okay, I see shaking in the back of the room, so that's a yes. And then, but there are patches of where it
There's
still
some
needs.
sidewalk that's missing.
There's
if
some
that's what you're
sidewalk
talking
that's
about. Yeah.
missing, so will that come now that this is done, or what's the?
I would think really soon, but
And is the wetland, I know there's some of it's at the wetland.
Yeah, so, Jesus, sorry, it's real loud. Basically, Gerson's at a hold still until Union Pacific gets out of their way. But they still have their substantial completion being done mid-September. So we're still in a good space there. As far as that includes everything else. Everything they need, they just need to kind of get UP out of the way.
Then, Dan, I did have one question about the roof replacement, and will that also include, when I walked out the last time we talked about this, I looked up and, we've got the fencing that's up to just sort of hide HVAC and everything, and it's all mismatched and all that
Right.
stuff.
we're going to do that in-house.
Okay.
We had gotten quotes and, oh gosh, it was probably like 30-something thousand for a contractor to do it. I'm like, that's just too much
Yeah,
money.
it's pretty simple.
I said, we can buy some timbers like that's up there and assemble it and then go with either lattice or something, so it's consistent.
Okay.
Yeah, because
I figured they're gonna have to take all that down.
they do, yeah, they have to not only take that down, but then that gazebo or pergola, whatever you
Right.
want to call it, that was up where the fire department was.
Yep, okay, great.
Yep.
Questions? All right, so no action needed for anything, so we'll go ahead and move on to Parks and Recreation.
Try to get that a little bit further away from me. So a couple things. The first thing is the Brentwood Middle School Fun Run. We talked about this last month, and you guys and the board approved to help out with the fun run. They have created a registration website that is active, which includes a link to the city's Brentwood Days website as well. And they're hoping that we include the run as part of our Brentwood Days activities, as well as maybe promote their run on our website. I'm perfectly fine with that. So I get a lot of head nodding, so we're good there. We met with Castle Construction about Lee Wind Trail. We did have a conversation with MSD, and they did confirm that we're going to have to do a full floodplain study, which we were afraid we were going to have to do. So it's not, we were expecting it. It just is going to delay the study. The study will take some time before they can get all the the design done, so then we can start the construction. So we have asked for a worst case scenario sort of timeline from Castle, because we're going to need to ask for another extension from FEMA for this. So we're working on that now. We have been trying to talk to Hilliker, because the quicker way would have been to take a little bit of that parcel, move the trail, and stay out of the creek completely. Unfortunately, Hilliker has been in contact with their real estate agent, little bits of real estate agent, and they're not interested in selling a portion of any of the property. I believe what I heard from Hilliker was that if we're interested in buying the full property, they would entertain that. So That does not seem like that's going to be a feasible option, but we are at least still working with them on access easement to be able to get construction materials through that area, so. 2831 Hilldale, I have to make sure I say this correctly. So it was not dedicated as a walkway, that little section on Hilldale, that if you look at it, the city does own it. It was transferred to Brentwood after a third tax sale. So since we own it, we can declare it to be excess property, and then we could sign a quit claim deed to 2901, who's interested in that property. So if that's what we're planning on doing, we'll have an ordinance to the board in August, doing that, and then once the board agrees to the excess property, then we can do the deed and hopefully have it done August, September timeline, so.
Sounds great. Do you need a motion from this committee, or we're, the direction that we've been going is fine just to go to
Yeah.
the board level? Okay,
Yep.
great.
Then the beer garden. So I've been trying to start writing the RFP for finding a vendor for the beer garden. And we come up with a couple small divergence, I guess, is we can write the RFP a number of ways. One is we can basically set an RFP to say we'd like to work with a vendor to develop a beer garden within the park. And when we talk about development, then we'll talk about cost sharing for facilities, and then that would affect maybe the percentage that the city would receive in the back end. So all those sorts of things but we would not have to bear as much of the upfront costs. The other route is to build the facility and then basically put out a simple RFP for a lease. Even within that, we could do basically just a shell and then have them come in and design how they want to put the interior, which would be a little bit less money, but then they'd have some upfront costs and things like that. So, or we could do a more broad RFP, which just says we want to work with someone on this facility, and maybe that would allow a vendor who might have their own facility to bring in, and if we did that would have to come back to the Public Works and the board for approval. So it's a lot to again, but we're just wondering if there's a thought of a pathway you want us to take, so that we can try to start getting this out there, because there are some interested parties. So that's the good news. But they're jumping. They keep calling me monthly, like, "Hey, what's the update?"
You want to start? You want to start?
Do we have any connections in St. Louis City, specifically Rockwell Beer Garden over in Francis Park? I'd be interested to see how they structured it. Personally, from experience with small business owners, I lean more towards developing a building, a shell, and then leasing that to them, letting them handle the outfitting of it, and keeping all the profits from it. And then we just, charge for the lease. But that's just my initial thought. Curious, as to how Rockwell might have done it, though.
Rockwell kind of started this whole conversation. They actually approached us. They're interested in being a part of the park. They do have their own facility. They have a container that they actually bought from AB. I'm not sure that's quite what we're looking for in the long run, but it could be in a proof of concept. We wanted to do something like that. So I do have the lease I do have the RFP that was written for Francis Park. And the difference is they had that facility there already. It's not a great facility because it was, I think, a maintenance area. And we saw it's kind of small. But yes, so that's the whole idea. If we do the just outer shell, let them come in and do it, we could kind of work on that.
So, I'm thinking of Parks Master Plan. Is there a beer garden in the Parks Master Plan? And is there, I know what the budget looks like, and I know we have the operating budget, and the capital budget is similarly strained. So is building a facility something that we think rises to the top? And maybe it does, because it'd be great to have, but it's an investment that I just wonder if we had been planning for in this way.
The answer is yes and no. As we've talked about, what the master plan will specifically say is that there's a design, or it calls out for a stage, an entertainment stage. And part of that kind of goes hand in hand with the vendor, because if we can get that stage, get a TV, then it's, daily usage, and it brings out more people to the park, and then brings in more people to the beer garden. My initial thought when I dream big is, yeah, if I could do this, then I can get that, whoever the vendor is, to help pay for that stage as well, because they understand that that will bring in people to their garden. So that is kind of the whole idea of maybe if we do, that first option is working with them. They understand that the stage and the thing kind of go hand in hand. But the beer garden specifically is not called out. I do not believe it is called out in the master plan.
Yeah, I mean, what they have at Francis Park is really great. Like, as you talk, I see maybe not as large as the one that we drove. Was it Wentzville that we went?
Yeah,
way out there?
Cottleville.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, maybe not as large as that, but like that would be an incredible amenity to have. I just money, and we're just
Yeah, no,
money just rained from the sky. Yeah, let's.
I completely understand, and trust me, this is not something I was going to bring as quickly as I was going to. It was something I've been thinking of as soon as we started thinking about the park. It's like, this would be great, because I've seen the success of Frankie Martin Garden and 9 Mile Garden, and so. But when we were approached by Rockwell, that kind of sped things up, because we do have an opportunity. So is the opportunity worth at least going through the process of putting out an RFP? And we're still a long ways away. This is just saying, hey, do we want to just at least do that first front process? Because even if we do the first option, we're still a couple years away from design and everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think, this is a tough one, because I know it's a forward thinking, it's a long time away. I struggle with, we definitely need to get a handle on permanent parking and making sure that we're sort of covered there before we start adding more activation to a park that's already very popular. And then if I'm sure beer garden, we've got popularity with the playground. This would have a different timing, right? So then so there's potential that there might be some ways that the parking works itself out, because this might be a little bit more activated in the afternoon and evening time. But I don't know, I agree. I think that, this one, there's probably other priorities that maybe we need to keep our eye on and make sure that we don't extend ourselves. Certainly knowing we already have debt service, so we can't necessarily go out and, borrow money to do something like this. I feel like if we tried to build a shell as a city, I got a sense it's gonna be more expensive building it than a vendor working with, I don't know, just, it seems like we tend to get hit with a higher cost for things.
So, well, so if we did the third option of having a vendor bring in their own facility, so two things. First, there's maybe some advantage to that, because maybe at some point something will happen along Manchester Road, and there might be a different vision of what happens closer to Manchester Road. But we have a reasonable expectation that there are multiple vendors who would apply for this?
I've personally spoken to one. It's been my understanding that a couple others have approached.
There might be a total of 3.
Okay, so there's not just, we're not just writing
Right.
something for one
However,
thing.
the one that seems to be more interested, and if the board had said, let's do it now, they were ready. And so it just really depends. So we have the design guidelines, but that's for residential neighborhoods and things like that, and commercial. And so just some of the thoughts and discussions preliminary that I've had with the mayor is that, you might want a certain look, brick and mortar that kind of aligns with the pavilion. And so when you allow them to bring in their, what is it? containers, shipping containers, it's a different feel. So
Yeah.
you need to be cognizant of total package, what that feel needs to be. But you could limit it by how long an agreement you want, so that if funding allows and you want to change direction, then you could then formally, do a brick and mortar there and maybe allow others, or maybe there's not a need for that because then we would have the entertainment district, along Manchester
Right.
Road. But yeah, you want to be deliberative, but strike while, what do they say? While
Iron's
the
hot.
iron's hot. And I was just thinking, listening to you all, that, we have the design in progress for the additional parking lot. And I don't remember what the cost of that is, but.
A lot.
Yeah.
There needs to be some sort of plan or consideration. Do we include that in the 25 proposed budget?
It is in my 25 budget.
It is, okay. Well, apparently he has money, so. But I asked him when he brought this up yesterday, we don't know what the cost of a brick and mortar would be. So it would be nice to kind of get an idea. Maybe we can work with Navigate to get a ballpark figure, and that would allow you all to know, oh, is it something we can afford or not?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, we're still very early in the budget process, obviously, but I know there's obviously some capital needs for my department in the new parking lot. The additional parking lot is one. And so the other that was in there is a design for the stage. Because if we were talking about doing this, the thought process is moving forward, at least with the design. Again, real early process. But yes, I mean, I think going out, I see every side of it. Because as you guys say, I mean, sometimes I dream very large, and I have, and I've been very fortunate with some of those dreams. I completely understand that. But I see, a good partnership with a vendor can bring in some additional funding for other things. And then, I also have my dream of having a Brentwood Park beer that gets sold at that place, that we get a percentage of the sales. I haven't told Paul this, I have a new one for, working with Brentwood-owned Arch Apparel for a Brentwood Park t-shirt, kind of what we talked about, Alderwoman Tice, a while ago.
Love that.
So I have like all these grandiose ideas. Timing is always the problem.
Pesky dollar.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the idea, if there's a desire to see a proof of concept, we could go with that third process for we wouldn't do it this year, it's too soon. So we do that for a park season to say, hey, maybe next year we'll do a proof of concept, right? The RFP, say for the 25 summer season, we'd like to see someone wants to bring in a facility, run out of it. It could be a food truck. I mean, it doesn't have to be a container.
Right.
We'd have set hours with them. We'd work on that stuff within RFP. We'd still work out an arrangement on sales. And so then that hopefully starts building maybe something to be able to help with the capital or the shell or something else if we like that. And again, it also gives you the flexibility if something does change in Brentwood bound and it does change a little bit there, that again, then we're done. So there's a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to go. I would be curious if we could ask Navigate just for a ballpark thing. I mean, I know how much we spent on that park pavilion, so it won't be cheap. It won't be cheap.
But I think the idea is we don't need as large of a building, obviously. I think what you're really looking for is just, it'd be half the size of this room, if even smaller than that. I mean, you guys saw the one at Francis Park. They can work out of something pretty small. And then having, probably a little bit of lighting, some tables and chairs out there. It would help to have the stage, but you don't need the stage right now. I still have all my staff meetings there after hours, of course. But, I think the idea is I think we could still see the proof of concept if that's something we want to look at.
What would that, I mean, there's an awful lot of green space now in that area. And, certainly it's a higher elevation. I'm sure water does run off. But what would putting some sizable structures on that space do for us? Like I'm assuming we're going to have to then have water capture, zero runoff of that.
We'd have to confirm that, but from what I understand, if you're toward the trail side, where the access of the trail coming from between the pavilion and the playground and the other one around That is higher, and that I believe is above base flood elevation. If not, we'll need a little bit of fill, and then we'd have to drop probably that part behind it a little bit more. So yes, that we'd
But you
have to-
still, you would still have roof structures and things like that that would contribute to some runoff that we'd have to account for.
The question, and again, we'd have to
Stormwater.
talk about this, whether it's temporary or, a permanent structure. Even if the temporary structure, again, we have some latitude of where we put it, if it's just temporary, if it's literally a food truck that comes out 4 nights a week to sell alcohol, and we set up high tops under the catenary lights or something like that. So, I mean, there's flexibility in some of these things.
Okay. So is this enough direction from the board generally?
Yeah, I mean,
That gives you a sense for where we all stand?
And we won't, the idea would be, if you're okay, which is what I think I'm hearing about that third option, what I would do is write a RFP, a draft to bring to this committee next month.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as long as we're not investing any money into things, we're just sort of getting a sense for what is potentially feasible for it. And then we're not locking ourselves into moving forward with anything. It's just like you said, a proof of concept or pressure test of is this even feasible,
Yep. And I can also get a quote for Navigate to give us a ballpark figure for that, and I'll bring that next month as well.
But I concur with Alderwoman Tice as far as, we're going to have this master plan hopefully to the board level soon to get approved. I mean,
Next month? Yep.
there's going to be quite a few amenities and goals in there that
Yep.
probably we'd need to start to look at, okay, if we were going to spend X amount of dollars, should we do it and tick off some of the things that are identified in here, or would this be an opportunity of striking while the iron's hot, and is that worth it? So as long as we leave all our options on the table,
Yep.
I think we're good.
Great. And then lastly, last month we talked about the YMCA and a memorandum of understanding. We talked about the fact that maybe we could go the other route for the affiliated user process. I had a brief conversation with the Y. They're looking at the affiliated user group process. I believe that's what when I talked to Lena, she's like, I think this is the way we probably want to go, but I just want to review it a little bit more. We also understand July is a busy month. So I was like, we'll figure this out. We have a great relationship with the Y. I'm not worried about that. So I feel like I'll be giving you guys an update next month saying that they've applied, we've approved it, and we have an agreement in place.
Do they, after the summer, do they use it frequently, or is it going to be just something that we get in place so that it's in place for next summer, essentially?
Basically, we've sent them an invoice for this year, but
Okay.
we would update the invoice based on the affiliate user group.
Okay.
Typically, they pay us in September anyway,
Okay.
after the fact. So again, I'm not too worried about it. We've worked with them for a long time.
Sounds good.
Great.
Thank you very much. Planning and Development? Whitney?
Evening. So the July monthly reports are attached in your documents. We received 247 permits for June. I'm sorry, I meant June, not July. With 718 inspections. There were 36 new code enforcement cases with 70 inspections. We are seeing this as a 22% increase over last year in building permits and 6% increase in code enforcement cases over last year. Last night, we had the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and they reviewed 6 items. The building and site improvements for Carboline at 8031 was continued. They have a pending variance request that will be at the July 25th Board of Adjustment. Planet Fitness CUP was recommended approval, so that will move to August meeting, as well as the 3 text amendments. The 8500 Manchester Road Comprehensive Sign Plan was continued to the Site Plan Subcommittee on July 31st. And then the Board of Adjustment on July 25th has the Carboline, and 2 others that were on the June agenda that got postponed, so.
Okay. On the Planet Fitness one, did they give a sense for what this means for the other potential area that we've continued to extend the CUP on?
I think
or is
they're
that-
no longer in that, considering 200 Hanley Industrial
Okay,
Court.
so
Yeah.
that's done because of the potential of this?
Yes.
Okay.
Then I have a question about code enforcement. Is the are the code enforcement numbers up because of increased staff, or are there increased complaints, or why is that number? It's good, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just, not that
I
they're bad, I
think
just
it's-
wondered.
I think it's a combination of both, because the staff person was moved to full-time. It allows for more investigation of cases, and then we have them at full-time level. We've had some very interesting code enforcement cases come up recently, as y'all are aware. So there's been a lot of new, I would say it's a combination of both, really, yeah.
And then as far as Manchester Road, where are we in the process? Because there's still a lot of properties that have the kind of overgrowth, and I get a lot of comments from my residents that I represent, because they walk along there and.
Yes, those are in code enforcement review. I know he sent out several letters. He goes by frequently to do a sweep of the area, so.
Okay, yeah, because I haven't seen much movement in people cleaning them up
Well,
yet.
one we sent out, I noticed they were in the process of, we drove by it today, so it was in the works.
And one item that does come up quite a bit is the fencing at Hanley and Manchester. I know we don't own that property, but it's on private property, but half of it's falling down and.
Yeah,
and,
so
you know,
we can, I believe that's also, I'll double check if that's on the list as well, and if not, we will follow up on
Okay,
that one.
great,
Okay.
thank you. All right, anything else for that? And Sustainability Committee, Commission, I'm sorry, doesn't look like there's anything there, okay. Next up, item 7 is the consent agenda. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Should we approve, okay,
Are we
approved by
acclamation
acclamation, yeah. Okay, so moving on to old business, amendment to Chapter 225, Brentwood Municipal Code.
So this is something we discussed last month, which is an update to basically the Parks and Recreation rules in the city ordinance. And so as we talked last month, there was a discussion on a number of things. So what has been changed and what you saw today is, first is talk to the city attorney a little bit about trails and how we keep that with hours of operations and things like that. And his recommendation is the easiest way to do it is just remove the word trails. So that's what we have done. So that way it's not set within those park hours. Then we also, the solicitation, letter J, we kind of updated that. We refined those provisions, the prohibitions. We removed a couple of duplicate thoughts. We removed campaigning as a prohibition. And we did remove duty of parents because that was something that was discussed as well. And I think after talking to the police department, they understood the reasons why. And then finally, we did update the drones to include the exemption for publicly operated aircraft. So I believe that's everything that was we talked about at last meeting. And so it hopefully is ready for approval.
I think so. There was one question that I had, and now I've lost it, where it related to low-speed vehicles. Do you recall what section that's in?
The only thing I remember about low-speed vehicles, give me a second.
Second page?
Yep.
So, but there are some trails that they are allowed in our code. So should this be, no person should operate a low-speed vehicle in any city park facility or trail area unless otherwise posted. Just that one item seemed like it was inconsistent with our ordinance that does allow them in certain trails.
Yeah, I can change that, and that would also make it a little bit easier in the future if we designate other trails. So
Right.
I will change that before it goes to the board.
Okay,
If you're okay with that,
Yep.
it'll go to the board in August anyway, so it's not going to, on Monday. So I could add something like, except as designated by,
right,
I'll work on that with Kevin.
okay. Well, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment, chapter 225 of the Brentwood Municipal Code and recommend approval at the Board of Aldermen August meeting.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that passes. Thank you very much. We can move on to new business. Item A, amendment to Article 13, is that 13? Chapter 605, Municipal Code.
Yeah, it seems like all I'm doing lately is mending the code. So we got another one. So what we found is basically as we continue to do more events and we continue to try to focus on utilizing that food truck area, we realize that we're basically going to be putting on, we're hoping, we'll get to the point where we have food trucks 2, 3, 4 days a week out there, especially if we do proof of concept, that will actually be out there more. And so as we do that, I was looking around in a lot of different cities and how they handle food truck ordinances and things like that. And it's kind of all over the place. Some people you actually have to go to planning. Some people you go to finance. Some people go to the fire department. And so in trying to know that this is a problem of my own causing, I figured the best thing to do is do it within my own department. And that way that kind of alleviates that stress from planning and development. So because of that, we would need to update Article 13 of Chapter 605. So basically, within the article, what you see is basically all of the changes that talk about parks. So anything that was talked about parks was stricken, and then we added 615-1940, which talks about complying with the Parks and Recreation food truck policies. There is one change that was made with the recommendation from Whitney, and which was a good catch. Number 4 did talk about the fact that the mobile food vendors should not park in designated spaces, accessible parking spaces, and that got stricken completely because it was a park-related thing, but we think it should be for the rest of the city. It should remain the same too. So we did add that back in, just that no mobile food vendor shall occupy any accessible parking space. And so then I took a couple examples I found of food truck policies, and especially after conversations with the fire department and at the management team meetings, and kind of put together the food truck policy that you see in front of you. The big kind of things of this is that the permits is what I saw a lot of places was the valid St. Louis City Fire inspection. And that is something that Chief Cottrell was very adamant about making sure that was in either the code or our policy, and then as well as the St. Louis County Health permit. So they basically would have to kind of bring this to us, and then we could go ahead and then approve their usage within the parks. This also allows us to be a little bit more mobile and be able to adjust quicker. And what we have found working with food trucks for the last 3 or 4 years is that they're not the most consistent group to work with. We have tons of cancellations. They get a better offer, they're out. We have lots of times where food trucks break down. We will not have one of our food truck vendors tomorrow night because their truck broke down, and we wouldn't be able to kind of get everything through the right process. If we could do it this way, we might have been able to. So it's a way to allow us to be a little bit more agile as well. So that is what we're recommending, and if it's okay, we'll move that onto the board.
Well, I have a question, and somehow between when I read the agenda and now,
Yeah.
the amendment, it's not just me.
It's
So
not just you, I was wondering the same thing.
I saw you clicking.
Our board
So
doc says
our board
says
docs
chapter
is chapter
225.
225, although this afternoon when I read it, it was the other section.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So I don't know what happened in the update, but I have 2 questions. First, I wrote down, it's section 605, 1930, number 7, but can't refer to it, but it had to do with alcohol. So it just said food, and so is the alcohol then taken into account with the food truck policy?
Yes, and basically what we do within the definition is talk about a food truck versus an alcohol truck. And I believe, and I think it's still the case, that technically in St. Louis County, food trucks cannot sell alcohol. And if you have an alcohol vehicle, an alcohol truck, you can't sell food. So I think that's still the case. So what we did in our definition is talk about the difference between an alcohol truck and a food truck. And there's also different permitting need because the alcohol trucks need a St. Louis, they need the state liquor license. They have to prove that they have their liquor license, whereas they don't need the county health permit.
So that wasn't in, I can't look at it anymore, that wasn't in 60, you didn't make changes there in the code, it's only in the policy with the
Yes,
alcohol trucks?
But we could make that same change in the code if you'd like.
Well, I just don't, I mean, if we don't need to, there's less stuff in the code, but
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea for the code, when we did this 10 years ago, 11 years ago, the idea was to kind of, I don't want to call it restrictive, but be restrictive to not allow food trucks to come in on a daily basis and set up shop at the promenade and sell at lunch and dinner. The board at the time did not want to take away from brick and mortar restaurants within Brentwood. So this was really designed for special events, one-time usage, things like that. And so that's why it becomes hard for our events and things like that to make sure that we can be able to have them on a regular basis. So that's why we changed this a little bit more to be a little bit more flexible. If we want to keep that philosophy, I say you keep the code the way it's currently written. That way it is more restrictive for when food trucks are coming in for one-time events within the city.
Right, okay, and then my other question along with that is that occasionally neighborhood groups will have a food truck, and I know they have to get a permit, and they have historically gotten it from planning and development. Is that?
That would remain the same.
That would remain the same. And then this code would cover them, so you couldn't have an alcohol truck in the neighborhood,
Correct.
but you could just have the food truck.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
No comments? Okay, so I guess we'll
I'll
entertain a motion.
make a motion to approve amendment to Article 13 of Chapter 605 of the Brentwood Municipal Code and send it to the Board of Aldermen in August.
August.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Great.
Good job amending codes.
Hopefully it's last time for a while. So the last thing for me tonight is Site 65, and I apologize, this came real late because we finally got our last quote to get our 3 quotes. So we were able to get 3 quotes. They based the quotes on Jacobs drew basically a quick design of what should be done to help mitigate that erosion. They thought the best course of action is to add riprap around the trail to mitigate that future erosion. So we got the 3 quotes. Plocker Construction is the lowest quote. The good thing about Plocker, or any of them, is one is Castle is our on-call. Gerson and Plocker are still under contract, so we could do a change order. So if we're okay with this, we could do a change order. We'd start the process, and a change order would come like a normal change order at the Board of Aldermen. So our recommendation is to go with Plocker, start that repair, and bring the change order to the board.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question. So Site 65 is the site right next to the trail.
Yes.
So all they're doing is putting riprap? We're not dealing with the...
No, because Jacobs is still working on the overall design for both 65 and 59 for those repairs.
Okay.
That's going to take a few months, and the idea is with continual rain, we continue to get more and more erosion. We want to, it's a Band-Aid to make sure that nothing is going to happen to that trail.
So there's a potential
Thousand
that in a
Band-Aid.
few months, we're taking the riprap out because they're going to do something different.
In talking with Jacobs, their recommendation is leave that riprap even with a new design. So that's just, they want to make sure that that's secure, and much like what we did on the Wind Trail, so that it's not going to change.
Okay, so this wouldn't be a change?
No.
Okay.
We wouldn't just take it out in whenever we do the full repairs now.
Okay. And then what's the timing on couple months?
Yeah, Jacobs is doing a lot of work, so the last update I had was end of the summer with the hope that we could get it out and start those repairs in the fall, typically when we don't have as much rain. And then we can get the material down and the plantings in place, which is what we should have done. So that is the hope. So we're still working on that timeline as of now.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is to avoid, this is like a stopgap to avoid losing the trail.
Yes.
I mean, in that case, I do understand why the solution would be to add riprap. I guess I worry a little bit about what that will eventually look like. You know, you're gonna just have a bunch of stones and boulders in a stretch that then has, you know, where the areas were laid properly, we're starting to see really great growth, and you're seeing good green space come through, and the trees are starting to really establish. This whole area is a big problem, not just by the trail, but all of that dirt and material we're losing every single time it rains, and the river, the creek turns into a river. It's a lot of money for shoring it up to then not lose when we really need to just get the whole work done. I mean,
I mean, the issue, and I understand completely, but the issue is that right now isn't the best time to do that full repair anyway if we had the design.
No, I understand
As it is
that.
the rain season, we have to kind of wait until the fall to get more dirt in, get the proper plantings in, seed it properly, things like that. And so,
We either do something now, and then we lose the element of time. And these are discussions that the board has had. And so as a reminder, I just would like us to caution ourselves with how we discuss this.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I don't think we can afford to lose a section of a GRG trail that we had support from GRG to build. And how would this will come from contingency?
correct.
Where were we on contingency? Were we relying on contingency to cover the full amount? And is this amount
That
somewhat
discussion will
subtractive?
come up when we get to it. So right now, we're just focused on this.
Okay, all right. So this may or may not be somewhat subtractive to that overall cost.
There's a lot more to that discussion that we
Okay.
can't have in
Okay.
open session.
All right, understood. All right. Well, what do you guys think you want to do?
Yeah, I think we have to do this because
Yeah.
the trail can't fall in. So I'll make a motion to approve Plucker Construction to put riprap at Site 65 with the approved amount of $57,750.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Let's get it done quick, because every rain,
Every
it gets
rain.
closer and closer.
The river.
Okay, next item is citizen comments. Anybody out there?
We don't have anybody out there right now.
Okay, all right. Seeing no further business, this meeting is adjourned.